What happens when two of the most talked about women in the world sit across from each other on live television, and one of them refuses to play nice in just 36 seconds? A simple question turns into an explosive outburst that shocks everyone in the studio. This is the moment that had everyone talking. The moment that proved sometimes even the biggest stars forget where they are and who they are speaking to. And this is exactly what happened when Meghan sat down with Angelina on The View. The studio lights were bright that morning. The audience was packed. Everyone was excited. Angelina Jolie was the guest host filling in for the week. And she had prepared thoughtful questions about humanitarian work, about using fame for good, about the responsibility that comes with a platform. She wanted a real conversation. She wanted to go deep. When Meghan walked out onto the stage, the applause was loud. She smiled and waved. She sat down in the guest chair and smoothed out her outfit. The cameras were rolling. Millions of people were watching from home. This was supposed to be a friendly chat between two women who had both lived extraordinary lives. Angelina started simple. She welcomed Meghan to the show. She thanked her for coming. She mentioned how both of them had experienced intense media scrutiny and public pressure. It seemed like they would find common ground easily, but that is not what happened. "So, Meghan, I wanted to start by talking about your charity work," Angelina said warmly. "You have spoken about wanting to make a difference in the world. Can you tell us what drives that passion for you?" Meghan paused. She looked at Angelina with an expression that seemed almost annoyed. "Well, Angelina, I think the real question is why more people are not doing what I am doing," she replied. "I have given up so much to fight for what is right. I walked away from everything. Not everyone has that courage." The audience shifted in their seats. Angelina smiled politely, trying to keep things on track. "I think many people admire the difficult choices you have made," she said carefully. "But I am curious about the specific causes that matter most to you. Where do you see yourself making the biggest impact?" "Where do I see myself making the biggest impact?" Meghan repeated, her voice rising slightly. "Angelina, I am already making the biggest impact. Every time I speak, people listen. Every time I share my truth, it changes the conversation. I do not need to prove anything to anyone." Angelina nodded slowly. She glanced at her notes. The other hosts at the table exchanged quick looks. This was not going the way anyone expected. "Of course," Angelina said. "I think what resonates with people is authenticity. When we talk about our work, it helps to be specific. For example, I have worked with refugees for many years. I have visited camps. I have sat with families. What are some of the hands-on experiences that have shaped your perspective?" Meghan let out a small laugh. It was not a friendly laugh. "Hands-on experiences, Angelina. My entire life has been a hands-on experience. I have been attacked, scrutinized, and torn apart by the media. I have survived things that would break most people. That is my hands-on experience. I do not need to go to a camp to understand suffering. I have lived it." The studio went quiet. The audience did not know whether to clap or stay silent. Angelina kept her composure. She was known for staying calm under pressure, for handling difficult conversations with grace, but even she seemed surprised by the direction this was going. "I understand that you have faced incredible challenges," Angelina said gently. "And I think your story has touched a lot of people. But part of what I love about this work is learning from others, listening to their stories. I'm wondering if there are communities or groups that you have connected with that have taught you something new." "Taught me something new," Meghan said, her tone sharpening. "Angelina, I do not think you understand. I am the one teaching. I am the one leading the conversation. People look to me for guidance. I have been through things that most people could never imagine. I have been silenced, and now I refuse to be silent. That is what matters." One of the other hosts at the table tried to jump in. "Meghan, I think what Angelina is asking about is," she began. But Meghan cut her off. "I know what she is asking," Meghan snapped. "And I am telling you that my experience speaks for itself. I do not need to justify my work to anyone. I have already proven myself." Angelina took a breath. She set her notes down on the table. "Meghan, I am not asking you to justify anything," she said calmly. "I am just trying to have a conversation. This show is about exchanging ideas, about learning from each other. I have spent decades working in humanitarian spaces, and I know how much there is to learn. I thought we could share that today." "Share?" Meghan said, leaning forward. "You want me to share? Angelina, you have no idea what I have been through. You have lived your life in Hollywood. You have had the world handed to you. I have had to fight for every single thing. Do not sit there and lecture me about learning. I have learned more in the past few years than most people learn in a lifetime. The tension in the room was thick. The cameras kept rolling. The producers in the control room were frantically trying to figure out what to do. This was live television. There was no cutting away, no editing. This was happening in real time. Angelina remained calm. She did not raise her voice. She did not fight back. "Megan, I have never had anything handed to me," she said quietly. "I have worked hard for everything I have. I have made mistakes. I have learned. I have grown. And I think that is what we all do. None of us have all the answers. That is why conversations like this matter." "Conversations like this?" Megan said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is not a conversation, Angelina. This is an interrogation. You sit there with your perfect image, your perfect career, and you think you can question me. You think you can judge me? I came here to talk about my work, my impact, my truth, and instead you are trying to diminish what I have done." "I am not trying to diminish anything," Angelina replied, her voice still steady. "I am asking questions because I am genuinely interested. That is what interviews are. That is what dialogue is. If you feel attacked, that is not my intention." "Your intention," Megan said, standing up slightly from her chair. "Your intention is clear. You invited me here to try to make yourself look better, to show everyone that you are the real humanitarian, and I am just what? A fraud. Someone who does not deserve to be taken seriously." The audience gasped. One of the other hosts tried to interject again. "Megan, I do not think that is fair," she said. "Angelina has been nothing but respectful." "Respectful?" Megan shot back. "This is what you call respectful? Questioning everything I say, acting like I need to prove myself to her. I have been disrespected my entire life, and I am not going to sit here and take it anymore." Angelina put her hand up gently. "Megan, please," she said. "Let us take a breath. Let us reset. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I would love to hear about your upcoming projects. I would love to talk about what you are excited about. Can we do that?" Megan stared at her for a long moment. The silence was uncomfortable. Finally, she spoke. "You know what, Angelina? I do not think I need to sit here and be condescended to by someone who thinks she is better than me. I came here in good faith. I came here to share my story, and all you have done is try to tear me down." "Megan, that is not true," Angelina said firmly but kindly. "I have not torn you down. I have asked you questions. That is all. If you cannot handle questions, then maybe this is not the right format for you." That was the breaking point. Megan stood up from her chair. She ripped off her microphone and threw it onto the table. "Maybe this is not the right format for me," she repeated, her voice loud now. "Or maybe you are not the right person to be interviewing me. You sit there acting like you are so humble, so grounded, but you are just as calculated as everyone else in this industry. You wanted me to come on this show, so you could make yourself look good. Well, I am not your prop." Angelina stayed seated. She did not react with anger. She simply looked at Megan and said, "I am sorry you feel that way. I truly am. I invited you here because I thought we could have a meaningful conversation. I still think we can if you are willing." "Willing," Megan said, grabbing her purse from beside the chair. "I am willing to be treated with respect. I am willing to be heard, but I am not willing to be used." And that is exactly what this is. The producers were now standing just off camera trying to signal to the hosts. The other women at the table looked stunned. Angelina remained composed. "Megan, no one is using you," she said. "But if you need to leave, then I respect that decision. I hope you find what you are looking for." Megan shook her head. "What I am looking for is basic decency," she said. "And clearly, I am not going to find it here." She turned and started walking toward the exit. The cameras followed her. The audience sat in stunned silence. Before she reached the door, she turned back around. "You know what the problem is with people like you, Angelina?" she called out across the studio. "You think because you have been doing this longer, you know better. You think you have earned some kind of authority. But let me tell you something. My voice matters just as much as yours. My story matters just as much as yours. And I do not need your approval or anyone else's." Angelina stood up now. She walked toward the front of the stage, closer to where Megan was standing. "Megan, I have never said your voice does not matter," she said, her voice carrying across the studio. "I have never said your story does not matter. In fact, I believe it does. That is why I wanted to talk to you. But part of having a voice means being open to dialogue. It means being willing to engage, not just to lecture." "Lecture?" Megan said, her eyes flashing. You are the one lecturing me. You have been lecturing me this entire time. You think you can teach me something? You think you can guide me? I do not need your guidance. I do not need your wisdom. I am my own person. And I am done pretending to be grateful for scraps of respect. The other hosts were now standing too, unsure of what to do. The producers were waving their arms, trying to cut to commercial, but the director kept the cameras rolling. This was television gold, even if it was a disaster. Angelina took a step closer. Megan, I am not giving you scraps of anything, she said, her voice still calm but with more edge now. I am treating you the same way I would treat any guest on this show, with respect, with curiosity, with an open mind. If that feels like an attack to you, then maybe the issue is not with me. That was it. Megan's face went red. How dare you, she said, her voice shaking with anger. How dare you suggest that the issue is with me? You have no idea what it is like to be in my position. You have no idea what it is like to have the entire world against you, to have your every move criticized, to have your intentions questioned at every turn. And now you stand there and tell me that the issue is with me. Unbelievable. I am not saying the issue is with you, Angelina clarified, her tone still measured. I am saying that if you come onto a talk show, you should be prepared to talk. Not just to make statements, not just to defend yourself, but to actually have a conversation. That is what we do here. Megan laughed bitterly. A conversation? This was never going to be a conversation. This was a setup. You wanted to embarrass me. You wanted to show everyone that I am difficult, that I am unreasonable, that I am the problem. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. I did not want this, Angelina said, her voice rising slightly for the first time. I wanted to have a thoughtful discussion. I wanted to learn from you. I wanted our audience to learn from you. But you came in here with your guard up so high that you could not even hear what I was asking. You turned every question into an attack. And now you are storming off because you cannot handle the fact that someone asked you to explain yourself. Megan pointed at Angelina. Do not you dare tell me what I can and cannot handle, she said. I have handled more than you will ever know. I have survived things that would destroy most people, and I will not stand here and let you belittle me. I am not belittling you, Angelina said, her frustration finally showing. I am asking you to be accountable. I am asking you to engage. I am asking you to stop hiding behind your victimhood and actually show us who you are, because right now all we are seeing is someone who cannot take the slightest bit of pushback. The room went silent. Even the crew stopped moving. Megan stared at Angelina, her chest rising and falling with angry breaths. For a moment, it seemed like she might say something else, but instead she turned on her heel and walked straight toward the exit door. Megan, wait. One of the other hosts called out, but she did not stop. The door slammed shut behind her. The sound echoed through the studio. Angelina stood there for a moment, watching the door. Then she turned back to the camera and took a deep breath. Well, she said, her voice soft but clear. That was not what I expected. I want to apologize to our audience for what just happened. My goal was to have a respectful and insightful conversation. Unfortunately, that did not happen. But I hope that we can all take something away from this. Communication is hard. Vulnerability is hard. And sometimes we do not get it right. She walked back to the table and sat down. The other host joined her. They looked at each other, unsure of what to say. Finally, one of them spoke. Angelina, you handled that with so much grace, she said. I do not think anyone could have done better. Angelina shook her head. I do not know about that, she said. I think there is always more we can do to reach people. But sometimes people are not ready to be reached, and that is okay too. The cameras finally cut to commercial. The studio erupted in murmurs. The audience was buzzing with shock and confusion. The producers rushed onto the set, asking Angelina if she was okay. She nodded and assured them she was fine. When they came back from commercial, the show continued. They talked about other topics. They tried to lighten the mood, but everyone knew that what had just happened was going to be the only thing people remembered from that episode. In the control room, the phones were already ringing. Social media was exploding. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had an opinion. Some people said Meghan was out of line. Others said she was justified. But one thing was clear. Angelina had remained calm, professional, and respectful throughout the entire ordeal. That is what made the difference. In a moment of chaos, she did not lose her composure. She did not stoop to insults. She did not fight back with anger. She asked fair questions. She listened. And when things went wrong, she took responsibility for her part and moved on. That is what a good host does. That is what a true professional does. And that is why when people look back on this moment, they remember Angelina as the one who handled it with class. Because at the end of the day, it does not matter how famous you are or how much you have been through. What matters is how you treat people. What matters is whether you can have a conversation without making it all about yourself. And on that day, in that studio, one person understood that and the other did not. The door to the dressing room backstage remained closed. Meghan did not come back out. She left the building through a side exit, avoiding everyone. No apologies, no explanations, just silence. Meanwhile, Angelina finished the show with the same grace she had shown throughout the entire encounter. She smiled. She engaged with the other hosts. She thanked the audience for their patience. She never once badmouthed Meghan or tried to make herself look better at her expense. That is the difference between someone who understands what it means to be in the public eye and someone who is still learning. That is the difference between someone who uses their platform to build bridges and someone who uses it to build walls. And that is why, when the dust settled and people looked back on what happened, they saw one person as the hero and the other as the villain. Not because of what was said, but because of how it was said. Not because of the questions asked, but because of the refusal to answer them. This was a moment that could have been so much more. It could have been a beautiful conversation between two women who had both faced adversity. It could have been inspiring. It could have been powerful. Instead, it became a lesson. A lesson in how not to handle yourself when you are given a platform. A lesson in what happens when you let your ego get in the way of connection. A lesson in the importance of listening, not just talking. Angelina walked off that stage with her head held high. She knew she had done her best. She knew she had tried, and sometimes that is all you can do. You cannot force someone to meet you halfway. You cannot make someone be vulnerable if they are not ready. All you can do is show up with good intentions and hope that the other person does the same. That day, only one of them did. The studio emptied out slowly. The crew packed up the equipment. The audience filed out, still talking about what they had just witnessed. And somewhere in two different places, two women were processing what had just happened in very different ways. One was reflecting on how she could have done better, on how she could have reached across the divide more effectively. The other was likely convinced that she had been wronged, that she had been set up, that she was the victim once again. And that is the saddest part of all. Because when you cannot see your own role in a conflict, when you cannot take responsibility for your part in a breakdown, you miss the opportunity to grow. You miss the chance to learn. You miss the possibility of becoming better. Angelina knew that. She had learned it over years of making mistakes, of stumbling, of getting back up and trying again. She had learned that strength is not about never being challenged. It is about how you respond when you are. And on that day, in that moment, she showed the world exactly what strength looks like. It looks like patience. It looks like grace. It looks like refusing to be dragged down into the mud, even when someone is trying their hardest to pull you there. That is the story. That is what happened. And that is why people are still talking about it. Because in a world where conflict is everywhere, where people are constantly fighting and tearing each other down, it is rare to see someone rise above it all. Angelina did that. She rose above. And that is why when this moment is remembered, she will be remembered as the one who got it.